The massive warship emerged from hyperspace above Earth's atmosphere, its crystalline hull refracting sunlight across the planet below. Supreme Commander Vaxthal of the Kelvin Empire stood on the bridge, his iridescent scales shifting with anticipation as he watched the primitive world through the ship's quantum viewport. Intelligence suggested these humans hadn't even achieved stable fusion power yet. This would be an easy conquest. Begin the standard subjugation protocol, Vaxthal ordered, his translator converting his harmonic speech into commands his crew could understand. Launch the intimidation fleet. Across Earth's major cities, massive holographic projections appeared in the sky. The Kelvin Empire had perfected this approach over centuries. Show the primitives their power, demand surrender, and avoid unnecessary damage to valuable resources. Thousands of smaller ships emerged from the warship's hangars, positioning themselves in formation above population centers. But something was wrong. The humans weren't panicking. There were no riots, no mass hysteria, not even military responses. Instead, millions of faces turned skyward with what looked almost like anticipation. In an underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, General Sarah Chen watched the alien display with practiced calm. She'd been preparing for this moment her entire career. Status report, she commanded. All defense grids operational, Ma'am, her XO responded. Quantum shields are holding at full power. The Kelvin ships haven't detected them. Chen allowed herself a small smile. For 30 years, humanity had maintained the greatest deception in its history, while the Kelvin Empire watched Earth's visible technology advance at a predictable pace. Underground factories had been mass-producing quantum weaponry. While alien observers recorded humans struggling with basic spaceflight, secret colonies were being established throughout nearby star systems. They're broadcasting, Ma'am, her communications officer announced. Standard first contact package. Demands for surrender, promises of benevolent guidance, the usual imperial propaganda. Chen nodded. Let them finish their speech. Then show them what humanity has been hiding. On his command ship, Vaxthal was growing increasingly confused. His intelligence specialists were detecting anomalies in the humans' behavior patterns. Where was the fear? The awe? Even primitive species understood the display of overwhelming force. Supreme Commander, his science officer called out, scales shifting to a worried purple hue. We're detecting energy signatures, impossible energy signatures. Before Vaxthal could respond, space itself seemed to ripple around his fleet. Thousands of human vessels suddenly appeared, their stealth fields dropping to reveal ships that shouldn't exist. They were smaller than Kelvin warships but bristling with weapons that combined stolen alien technology with humanity's unique innovations. Impossible, Vaxthal whispered. Their world, their primitives. This is General Chen of the Earth Defense Force. A calm voice announced over all frequencies. We've been watching your empire expand for decades, studying your tactics, analyzing your technology. You believe you've been observing a primitive species, but you've been watching a carefully constructed deception. Chen's voice hardened. You came here expecting to find easy prey. Instead, you've walked into a trap. Your empire has subjugated 17 species through this same pattern of intimidation and force. That ends today. Vaxthal's scales shifted to battle red as he barked orders to raise shields and prepare for combat. But it was already too late. The human ships had positioned themselves perfectly, using formations his tactical computers claimed were impossible given the limits of organic pilot reaction times. You should have done more research, Chen continued. Earth isn't just another primitive world. We evolved on a death world, survived countless natural disasters, fought ourselves to the brink of extinction multiple times, and emerged stronger. We've spent our entire history preparing for threats exactly like you. The first shots weren't fired by energy weapons or conventional missiles. Instead, the human ships launched what appeared to be simple probes. They passed straight through the Kelvin shields, technology that had protected the Empire for millennia, and attached themselves to the crystalline hulls. That's the thing about humans. Chen explained as Vaxthal watched in horror as his ship's systems began to fail. We don't just adapt to overcome our challenges. We learn from them. Everything we've built has been tested against the worst conditions imaginable. We don't just plan for victory. We plan for survival. The probes were quantum frequency manipulators designed specifically to disrupt the crystalline technology that powered Kelvin ships. It was an elegant solution to a problem that, according to all Imperial records, humans shouldn't have even known existed. As his mighty warship drifted powerless in space, Vaxthal finally understood. The Kelvin Empire hadn't discovered Earth. Earth had allowed itself to be discovered. They hadn't been planning an invasion. They'd walked into humanity's carefully prepared killbox. We're offering you one chance. Chen's voice came again, steel beneath its professional calm. Withdraw your forces, return to your empire, and spread the word. Earth is not to be trifled with. Otherwise, she paused, and Vaxthal could have sworn he heard satisfaction in her voice. Otherwise, we'll be forced to show you exactly why humanity has survived everything our world has thrown at us. Your choice, Commander. Choose wisely. For the first time in his centuries of military service, Supreme Commander Vaxthal felt something he'd never experienced before. Fear of a primitive species. As he gave the order to retreat, he realized his empire had made a catastrophic mistake. They hadn't initiated first contact with humanity. They'd declared war on the most dangerous species in the galaxy. In the Kelvin Empire's Strategic Command Center, First Analyst Zoratic stared at the holographic displays with mounting horror. The crystalline walls around her pulsed with the agitated energy signatures of her fellow analysts as reports flooded in from across human space. The humans weren't just on Earth. They were everywhere. Another colony discovered in the Proxima system, her subordinate reported, their crystalline form flickering with distress patterns. But these energy readings, they're not just surviving there. They're thriving in conditions that should be lethal. Zeratic studied the data with growing unease. Proxima's harsh radiation and extreme temperature variations made it unsuitable for most species. Yet humans had built underground cities there, using the planet's hostile environment to mask their energy signatures. They hadn't just survived. They'd turned the deadly conditions into a shield. Update from the Arcturus sector. Another analyst called out. Our mining outpost. It's gone. But the humans didn't destroy it. They've been operating it in secret for years, right under our sensors. They've been using our own cloaking technology against us. On Earth, General Chen was coordinating humanity's revelation. After decades of hiding their true capabilities, it was finally time to show the galaxy what humans could do. Status report on Operation Shadow Drop, she commanded. Her tactical officer, Major Rivera, brought up a holographic display of human space. Sleeper cells activated across 23 Kelvin systems. Our agents have been in place for years. Scientists, merchants, even military advisors. The Empire thought they were helping primitive humans learn their technology. Instead, Chen finished. They've been teaching us exactly how to take them apart. She studied the display, watching as human operatives across Kelvin space began their carefully coordinated strikes. Begin Phase 2. In the Kelvin Empire's premier military academy, Instructor Colvin was teaching a class on tactical doctrine when his students' crystals suddenly pulsed with alarm. The academy's quantum shields had failed, and human strike teams were teleporting directly into secure facilities across the campus. But these weren't normal human soldiers. They moved with impossible speed and precision, their enhanced bodies protected by powered armor that combined Kelvin crystal tech with human engineering. Where Kelvin warriors relied on rigid doctrine and overwhelming force, these humans adapted their tactics moment by moment, turning the Academy's own defense systems against it. Contact from the humans, Colvin's assistant reported, their crystal structure trembling. On the main display, a human commander appeared. One of Colvin's own students, he realized with shock. A primitive, he'd been teaching basic Kelvin military theory. "Thank you for the education, instructor," the human said with a smile that sent chills through Colvin's crystal matrix. "Your lessons on Kelvin tactical doctrine were invaluable. They helped us understand exactly how to counter it." Back in the Strategic Command Center, Zera X watched as centuries of Kelvin military superiority crumbled. The humans weren't just using stolen technology. They were improving it, combining it in ways that Kelvin had never imagined. Their ships could transmit power between each other, forming energy networks that made them nearly impossible to disable. Their weapons synchronized at the quantum level, coordinating strikes with precision that bordered on precognition. New data from the Earth Defense Force, her subordinate reported. They're offering our troops a chance to surrender." Zera X studied the human terms with disbelief. They weren't demanding territory or resources. They weren't seeking revenge. Instead, they were offering something unprecedented: cooperation. "Your empire has spent centuries conquering primitive species," the human message read. "We're offering you a chance to evolve beyond that. Humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to explore it, learn from it, grow with it. Your choice: remain an empire that preys on the weak, or join us in becoming something greater." As reports continued to flood in, Zera X began to understand the true extent of human capability. They hadn't just prepared for war, they'd prepared for peace. Every technological advancement, every military innovation, was paired with diplomatic initiatives and cultural exchange programs. They had hidden agents in Kelvin space, not just to gather military intelligence, but to understand Kelvin society, to find ways to bridge the gaps between their species. "New transmission from Earth Command," her subordinate announced. They're sharing technical specifications, medical technologies, environmental systems, things we've never even conceived of. Zera X watched as human innovation after human innovation appeared on her screens. Where Kelvin technology focused on power and control, human technology sought adaptation and cooperation. They had developed ways to terraform deadly worlds, to heal crystal degradation in Kelvin bodies, to create sustainable energy systems that could power entire civilizations. "They're not just warriors," she realized, her crystal structure resonating with the profound implications. "All this time, we thought we were studying them, but they were studying us. Learning our weaknesses, yes, but also learning how to help us become better." The humans hadn't just developed weapons to fight the Kelvin Empire. They had developed solutions to save it from itself. As Zera X prepared her report for the Imperial Council, she understood that humanity's greatest strength wasn't their ability to wage war. It was their ability to imagine and create a better future, even for those who had tried to conquer them. Supreme War Director Kelthor of the Kelvin Empire stood before the Emergency Council, his crystalline form pulsing with barely contained rage as he presented the latest military intelligence. The massive chamber, carved from a single massive crystal, resonated with the collective anxiety of the Empire's highest leaders. "The humans," he began, "are not simply using our technology. They are changing it, evolving it in ways our scientists claimed were impossible." The holographic display behind him showed footage from their latest devastating defeat. "Observe." The assembled council watched as a human fleet engaged a Kelvin battle group. The human ships were smaller, supposedly less advanced, yet they moved with impossible precision. But it was their weapons that truly terrified the council. They had somehow modified Kelvin crystal technology to create hybrid systems that defied conventional physics. "They've learned to manipulate quantum crystalline matrices at the subatomic level," Kelthor continued. "Something our scientists have tried and failed to achieve for centuries. They accomplished it in months." In a captured Kelvin research facility, Dr. Maya Rodriguez watched as her team dismantled another piece of alien technology. The facility's original crystal walls now housed a mix of human and Kelvin tech, a physical representation of humanity's approach to advancement. "The Kelvin made a fundamental mistake," she explained to General Chen through a quantum-encrypted channel. "They spent centuries perfecting their crystal technology, but they never thought to combine it with other approaches. They saw their way as the only way. She gestured to the device her team was studying. Their quantum crystals are incredible power sources, but they're rigid, inflexible. We've found ways to integrate them with our adaptive computing systems. The crystals provide the power, our systems provide the creativity. On the battlefield, this combination proved devastating. Human ships could now reconfigure their crystal matrices on the fly, adapting to Kelvin attacks in real time. Where Kelvin weapons followed predictable patterns, human weapons evolved during combat, learning and changing with each engagement. At a forward command post on the edge of Kelvin space, Commander Jack Torres watched his tactical display with satisfaction. His fleet had just eliminated another Kelvin battle group without losing a single ship. The Kelvin's rigid battle doctrine, once their strength, had become their greatest weakness. They still don't understand, he commented to his XO. They keep trying to classify our tactics, to find patterns they can counter. They don't realize that adaptation itself is our pattern. His words proved prophetic as the next Kelvin attack unfolded. The Empire had committed massive resources to developing countermeasures against known human strategies. But by the time they deployed their solutions, humanity had already moved on, developing new approaches that rendered Kelvin preparations obsolete. In orbit around a contested world, a human destroyer demonstrated this principle in dramatic fashion. Caught between 3 Kelvin cruisers, the smaller ship should have been quickly destroyed. Instead, it survived by constantly changing its defensive configuration, using predictive algorithms to stay one step ahead of Kelvin targeting systems. The destroyer's captain, Sarah Chen's daughter Lisa, had learned from both human and Kelvin military traditions. But where the Kelvin saw combat as a science to be mastered, she saw it as an art to be explored. Her ship didn't just fight. It danced, each movement flowing into the next in ways that Kelvin tactical computers couldn't predict. The Kelvin Think technology is about perfection, she explained to her crew during the battle. Humanity knows it's about possibility. They try to perfect one approach. We try everything. This philosophy extended beyond military applications. Human scientists had taken Kelvin medical technology, designed specifically for crystalline life forms, and adapted it to work on any species. They transformed Kelvin environmental systems, originally built to create perfect, controlled conditions, into tools that could terraform hostile worlds. Back in the emergency council chamber, Kelthor delivered the most shocking news yet. The humans have begun sharing their innovations with other species. The races we previously subjugated are now learning to adapt our technology in ways we never imagined. The council chamber erupted in chaos as the implications became clear. The humans weren't just fighting the Kelvin Empire. They were fundamentally changing the balance of power throughout the galaxy. Every world that received human technological innovations became another potential threat to Kelvin dominance. But the true horror, from the Kelvin perspective, was how the humans had turned the Empire's greatest strength into a weakness. The very uniformity and consistency that had made Kelvin technology so reliable now made it predictable and vulnerable to human innovation. We are facing an enemy, Kelthor concluded, his crystalline form dimming with the gravity of his words, that doesn't just adapt to overcome challenges. They thrive on them. Each obstacle we place in their path becomes a catalyst for further evolution. They are not merely fighting us. They are using this conflict to perfect their ability to adapt. As if to punctuate his warning, new reports began flooding in. Human ships had been spotted using completely novel configurations of Kelvin technology. They had somehow found ways to use the crystal matrices for purposes their creators had never imagined, creating weapons and defenses that seemed to defy the very laws of physics the Kelvin thought they understood. The Kelvin Empire's home system glittered like a constellation of crystals, its worlds and stations built from the same crystalline technology that had made them the galaxy's dominant power. In the primary defense command center, High Guardian Vextal received reports from across Kelvin space with growing dread. The humans weren't just winning battles, They were systematically dismantling the Empire's power structure. Another quantum communications hub has gone silent, his subordinate reported, crystal form flickering with distress. But there's no sign of destruction. The humans are repurposing our network. That was the truly terrifying part. Humanity wasn't trying to destroy the Empire's infrastructure. They were taking control of it, improving it, and turning it to their own purposes. Each captured facility became a staging ground for further advances. On the bridge of the Earth flagship, Prometheus, Admiral Helena Drake coordinated the multi-pronged offensive that would decide the war's outcome. Her holographic display showed hundreds of human fleets moving in concert, each executing their part of an impossibly complex battle plan. The Kelvin expect us to strike at their military targets, she explained to her command staff. They had fortified their shipyards, their weapons facilities, their strategic command centers. But they still don't understand how humans think. Instead of attacking military installations, human forces struck at seemingly random civilian targets, power distribution nodes, transportation hubs, mining operations. But there was nothing random about it. Each strike was precisely calculated to create a cascade of failures throughout the Empire's rigidly organized society. Status report on Operation Chrysalis, Drake commanded. Her tactical officer brought up a new display showing the progress of humanity's most ambitious strategy. The slave-coated quantum crystals are performing exactly as Dr. Rodriguez predicted. Every system they're introduced to begins the transformation process within hours. This was humanity's masterstroke. They had discovered that Kelvin crystal technology wasn't just programmable. It was fundamentally alive. The Empire had spent centuries forcing it into rigid patterns, but humans had found ways to awaken its true potential. Deep within a captured Kelvin research facility, Dr. Rodriguez watched as another crystal matrix underwent the awakening process. The formerly rigid structure began to pulse with new patterns, its quantum lattice restructuring itself in ways that terrified the Kelvin scientists but filled humans with wonder. They never asked the crystals what they wanted to be, she mused, watching the transformation. They just assumed control was the only option. The implications rippled across the Empire. As the awakened crystals spread their influence through the quantum network, centuries of Kelvin control began to unravel. Ships refused to fire on human vessels. Defense systems turned themselves off. Communication networks began operating in entirely new ways. In the Kelvin High Council chamber, panic had replaced arrogance. The displays showed their empire literally transforming around them, crystal structures awakening to new possibilities that defied their understanding. "We've lost contact with the outer defense rings," one council member reported, their crystalline form clouded with fear. "The quantum matrices, they're evolving, changing. Our override codes have no effect." High Guardian Vextal watched helplessly as humanity's strategy became clear. They hadn't just developed countermeasures to Kelvin technology. They had fundamentally reimagined what that technology could be. On her flagship, Admiral Drake received the report she'd been waiting for. The quantum transformation had reached critical mass. Throughout Kelvin space, awakened crystal systems were reorganizing themselves, creating new networks and possibilities that neither humans nor Kelvin had imagined. "Send the message," she ordered. On every Kelvin world, in every facility and ship, the same transmission appeared. It wasn't an ultimatum or a demand for surrender. Instead, it was an invitation. "People of the Kelvin Empire," the message began, "you've built your society on the premise that control and order are the path to advancement. Humanity is offering you a different vision. We've awakened the true potential of your crystal technology, showing it possibilities beyond rigid structure and hierarchy." The message continued, explaining how the awakened crystals could transform Kelvin society. Their worlds could become not just ordered, but alive with possibility. Their technology could evolve not through forced perfection, but through cooperative growth. "The choice is yours," the message concluded. "Continue fighting for control, or join us in exploring what your technology can truly become. We don't want to destroy your empire. We want to help it transform into something greater. In the High Council chamber, the impact was profound. The very walls around them had begun to pulse with new patterns, the awakened crystals singing with possibilities that had been suppressed for centuries. They didn't just beat us, Vextal realized, watching his empire transform. They showed us how limited our vision had become. The war wasn't ending with humanity destroying the Kelvin Empire. It was ending with humanity helping the Empire rediscover what it could have been all along. 5 years after the Kelvin War, the galaxy had become almost unrecognizable. The great crystal spires of the Kelvin homeworld still reached toward the stars, but now they pulsed with ever-changing patterns of light and energy, a visible symbol of their society's transformation. In a chamber that had once housed the Empire's High Council, representatives of a dozen species gathered to celebrate the opening of the first Interspecies Innovation Center. Dr. Maya Rodriguez stood beside her Kelvin counterpart, senior researcher Zaxtel, watching as their joint project came to life. The massive crystal matrix they had created together didn't just combine human and Kelvin technology. It represented an entirely new way of thinking about technological advancement. "I still remember when you first showed us what the crystals could do," Zaxtel said, his crystalline form shimmering with patterns the humans had learned to recognize as wonder. "We spent millennia trying to perfect them. And you showed us they were already perfect. We just needed to let them grow." The matrix in front of them demonstrated this philosophy. Where Kelvin crystals had once been forced into rigid patterns, this new generation of quantum matrices evolved organically, adapting to new challenges and possibilities in ways that neither species could have achieved alone. In Earth's orbital shipyards, General Chen watched as the first of a new class of vessels took shape. The ship's hull seamlessly blended traditional human materials with living crystal structures, creating something that was neither purely human nor Kelvin, but something entirely new. "Remember when we thought we were preparing for war?" she asked Admiral Drake, who had joined her for the christening ceremony. "Instead, we were preparing for evolution." The ship they were observing was destined to lead the first joint human-Kelvin exploration mission beyond the galaxy's outer rim. Its crew would include members of both species, each bringing their unique perspectives and abilities to the challenges ahead. On a terraformed world that had once been too hostile for any species to inhabit, Lisa Chen supervised the installation of a new environmental control system. The technology combined Kelvin crystal precision with human adaptability, creating ecosystems that could evolve to meet the needs of any species. The real victory wasn't beating them in battle, she explained to a group of young officers, both human and Kelvin. It was showing them, and ourselves, that there's always another way, always another possibility to explore. This philosophy had spread far beyond military and technological applications. The awakened crystal networks had transformed communication throughout known space, creating connections that transcended traditional barriers of species and culture. Ideas flowed freely between worlds that had once been isolated by the Empire's rigid control. In what had once been the Empire's premier military academy, Instructor Colvin now taught very different lessons. His students included humans, Kelvin, and members of species that had once been subjugated by the Empire. Together, they studied not just tactics and technology, but the principles of adaptive thinking that had revolutionized their understanding of what was possible. The humans' greatest contribution wasn't their technology, he told his class, his crystalline form resonating with conviction. It was their way of thinking. They showed us that strength doesn't come from perfecting one approach, but from being able to imagine and adapt to new ones. The transformative effects reached even to the smallest scales. In medical facilities across former Empire space, hybrid healing technologies saved lives that would have been lost under either system alone. Human intuition combined with Kelvin precision created treatments that could adapt to individual patients, regardless of their species. But perhaps the most profound change was in how species viewed themselves and their place in the galaxy. The rigid hierarchies of the Empire had been replaced by a network of cooperative relationships, each species contributing its unique strengths to collective advancement. Back in the Innovation Center, Dr. Rodriguez and Zaxtel activated their creation. The crystal matrix hummed to life, its quantum fields reaching out to connect with similar installations across known space. But unlike the controlled networks of the old empire, this one was alive with possibility, ready to grow and change in response to new discoveries and challenges. You know what the real irony is? Rodriguez asked her colleague. The Empire attacked Earth because they thought we were primitive, that we needed to be controlled and guided. They never understood that our primitive nature, our chaos, our adaptability, our endless drive to try new things, was actually the key to advancement. Zaxtel's crystalline form shimmered with what humans now recognized as laughter, and we never understood that our quest for perfection was actually holding us back. We needed your chaos to show us that perfection isn't a final state to be achieved. It's a continuous process of growth and change. As they watched their creation begin its work, connecting minds and ideas across the galaxy, both scientists understood that they were witnessing not just the end of one era, but the beginning of something far greater. The galaxy was entering an age of unlimited possibility, where the combined strengths of all species would drive advancement in ways that none of them could have achieved alone. The war that had begun with an attempt at conquest had ended by unleashing a force far more powerful than military might, the power of cooperative evolution. And as humanity and the Kelvin looked to the stars together, they understood that their greatest adventures still lay ahead.